Brilliant. Welcome, everybody, to another Craft Along with Carol. So today, what are we doing? Let's get straight into it. Today, I'm using the Back on Your Feet set. It's a lovely, lovely set, I think, just for giving people a little bit of a smile when they're not feeling so well, which, I don't know, that's important to me. So as always, I've made a few cards, and this week I wanted to focus particularly on two little tools that you may not have seen so much in the catalogue. So let me show you some of the cards first. Oh, and I always do the envelopes. Always do the envelopes.
Oh, yes.
Got different envelopes and done on the back of some of them as well, just for fun. So always do the envelopes. Little tip for everyone. So here's the cards. This is the first one. So this is not good. I love that. Poor giraffe. Oh, Margaret's here. Let me just let her in. Lovely. So this is not, I've done them in a different sets of colours as well. So then I've got the sloth with his bandaged paw, bless him. Oh. And of course the turtle who's got completely stuck on his back, which is horrible. So if you look closely at these, I've done these in all sorts of different colours as well. But if you look closely at these, you may see, in fact, I've done it on the giraffe on this sheet here. Can you see any?
Oh, it's glittery.
Yeah.
Shimmery.
Yeah. These spots are all shimmery. And if we can get a decent close, oh, where's the camera? There.
Yeah.
Can you see it is actually slightly glittery as well?
Yeah.
And I've done his eye and all the spots to make it like that. And on the sloth and on the turtle, I've done his shell. It's really difficult to show shininess. There we go.
Yeah.
I've done the shell and the eye for the turtle. And on the sloth, I've done his, trying to get it to show. Well, there you go. So I've done his eyes and his mouth and the bandage.
Oh.
And I think it just adds something rather nice. And what I've used is a little known thing that isn't always easily findable in the catalogue, some of these things, but this is the Shimmery Crystal Effects. I also have a plain crystal effect, which I bought yonks ago, they're called Glossy Accents. But this one's got that little bit of a shimmer. It's just got that little, this one up, it's easier to hold. It's just got a bit of a glitter. Oh, it's so difficult to show it on camera, but it has actually got a little bit of glitter in it. I don't know if you can see that. You possibly can't see it on the screen, but it's like just little tiny flecks of glitter in, which are lovely, white and gold. You can't really see it on the screen, but I can see them. And I think they're lovely. So have a look at this in the catalogue. It's on with various of the other bits there. And of course, when we're talking about this suite, before I forget to tell you all about it, I've lost it now, there it is. If you were thinking, for example, of buying this, well, this is £20. I can't remember how much the crystal effects is, should have looked that up and I can't remember. But you could add that in, whatever. But you can make up very easily a £45 cost for this. By adding in, say, something like a mixed card pack, or I think this is a similar sort of price, and the emboss powders, which I'm going to use today because I thought we ought to cover embossing. And if you look closely at the things, you can see that I've actually embossed the sentiments.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so all the sentiments are embossed. That one's in gold. This one is the
silver.
Is silver, and this one is bronze, because the embossing powders come on, get that to shine. There we go. Got to get the light from the window just shining on it properly. That's the bronze one, and they come in packs of 3, so you can either get white, black, and should have my catalogue with me, shouldn't I, to remind you, but there's 3. There's a white, black, and something. Can't remember what the third one is in that pack. And on the other pack, there's gold, silver, and bronze. So they're lovely. And if you bought a pack of embossing powders, a pack of mixed cards, because I've done all these with coloured cards, I'll show you those in a minute, and emboss spiders, that's your £45. Or if you haven't done embossing before and you need the heat tool, for example, so you could buy the heat tool, and I've coloured all of these with the blends. We're going to go through colouring with blends today as well. And if you wanted a couple of packs of blends, 2 packs of blends would be plus a heat tool, that's a £45. So it's easy enough. Remember your bonuses, because those, remember what I showed you last week in terms of some of the wonderful things from Celebration? Definitely worth getting. I'm getting packs of the papers, which are just gorgeous, as well as the lovely sets. So let's talk about what we've done today. So I've used the new card colours, the in colours for these. So I've used the soft succulent, evening evergreen, the freesia, what's it called? Fresh freesia, pale papaya, and the one we're just going to finish off today, because I'm going to show you how I've made these cards, is the polished pink. So that's one we're going to do today. I've got a couple to do today, but I'll just show you how I'm doing them. So I prepared a lot of this earlier. So this is the polished pink, so it matches the set, means I've got one of each colour. I've actually got 2 of each colour because I've done quite a few. So I've already done the inside. I love that phrase on the set, sometimes that's all there is to say, and that I'm here for you. So this one's the giraffe one, so I'm going to use the it's not good. But I wanted to show you how I'd actually done, where's my giraffe card gone again? How I've actually done the knots there. Whoops, picked up the other giraffe. Let me put him down. And obviously the embossing, because I've actually, you can see I've actually cut out the knot and the head so that the ears have got a bit of dimension and the knot. So there aren't any dies with this set, but they're simple enough to cut out. So I've done my basic flat giraffe here, and I've also stamped the head of the giraffe somewhere else, because quite frankly, to cut out the whole giraffe, you've got this mane and I am not going to spend time cutting out that mane. Let's just try and get a close-up of it. No way am I going to cut around all of it. That is too much. So an easy way to do it is how I've done it on these cards, which is to stamp the base image on the card, so you've got the mane, and then you cut out the bits you want to lift up without the mane on. Hey, that looks okay. So I'd started this just to show you what I'm doing. Let me get me snips. So I'm not bothering to cut out the actual main bit. I'm just cutting out, it's so tiny, you have to bring it quite close, just cutting out the knot. So I'm going to separately cut out the knot and the head. So I'm going to finish cutting those out, just literally down the stamp line. So cutting off the main bits, because, you know, life is far too short to try and, I mean, you would just drive yourself mad doing that, wouldn't you? It's just, I can't be bothered. So I'm just going to finish cutting this out. Didn't want to spend all day cutting the whole thing out for you. I do cut out his little, what are they called? What are those things called that giraffes have? I don't know. They're not antlers.
No.
They are sort of antlers. I don't know. Anyway, those lumpy bits on the top, whatever they are. So I'll just cut out just briefly there. There we go. So now I've cut out the head and the knot. So then I'm going to cut off the knot. I'm just going to again cut around the edge there. So I've got a separate head and a knot. Don't lose the bits because they're tiny. And then I'll stick them on the card. So just to go over how I've made the card, I'm using one of the coloured cards as the base. Then I've cut 2 white layers, about 0.5 centimetre smaller, something like that. I can't quite remember what. Did I write down that? I probably haven't written them down. No, of course I didn't. I'd have to measure it. Let me measure it and tell you what layers I've used here. So I've cut the white ones, I'll do it in centimetres. So I've cut the white ones at 9.5 by 14. So that is just less than a centimetre tall and a centimetre less, so 0.5 centimetre either side for that. And this one, the paper layer, I'll show you the papers in a sec, is 8.5 by hopefully 13, if that works out. Yes, it does, 30.
Should do.
So basically, your normal base card is 14.8 by 10.5. So I've made this first layer a centimetre less either side, and this layer another centimetre less. And that gives you a decent, sometimes I like quite a broad one. When I'm using colour, I tend to use slightly broader layers because I think it shows up better. If I'm using, where's my other card? Oh, here. So on this card, because in case you haven't got layers, I wanted to show you how you can do it without too many layers. Here I'm using white as the base card, and then I'm using a coloured card piece and then a piece of DSP on top. And this time, can you see I've cut these less, cut these smaller, because you don't need as much of a border when you're doing it that way round. But when I'm putting it on coloured card, I use a bigger border. So that's all I've used for those. Then I've stamped this inside and stuck it in, stamped the paper on the top, and the paper I was using, I need a bigger desk. Is this is the In Colour Designer Series paper. Now there is a Designer Series paper pack for the in colours and for each family of colours. So for the subtles, the regals, etc. And I love these. They're all the same pattern, so it means you can mix and match. As always, there are 2 designs in each colour and several sheets of each design. I think about 4 sheets of each design. So you have this, I don't know what those are, these sort of shapes, and then this sort of dotted one. You'll see I've used both of those, and of course they've got another side, so you've got this lovely check which I really like on the back of that one, and on the back of these ones I've got this sort of square circles, crosses type thing, circles and crosses, I don't know. So there's some really nice papers, so you can get those in every single colour for every ink, which is rather lovely. And on the cat, so this is the In Colour one, so it's got all the new in colours in both designs, and that's what I've used for these. But if you wanted to use a set of inks you've got, then the matching set of designer papers would work very well as well, or you could use any other one. I quite like these basic design ones. I don't want a fussy design to go behind this sort of card, because obviously the image is going to be the main thing. So having cut all those bits out, get rid of the little bits, there we go. How do I stick them on? Well, I get my glue. Trouble is, I've just put everything else on top of my glue. There we go. So to stick the head on, I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the actual head and the neck, but not anywhere near the ears, because I want the ears to just show a little bit of depth. So I just simply stick that on right over the downward, the image that's already there. And you can see that now I've got the ears sticking up a little bit and the face just sticking on flat. But then the knot, I want this much higher up. And the best way to do that is with our super little mini Stampin' Dimensionals. Or if you've only got the big ones, you can cut those down into little tiny bits. But quite frankly, these are just the perfect size for these little tiny things you want to stick on. So I'm going to put a little mini dimensional on the back of my knot. And then, making sure I've got it the right way around, I can then stick that on top of the knot in the picture. And I have a raised knot, the ears stick up. So I can show that. So the knot is sticking up and the ears are sticking up, just gives a little bit of dimension. And then we can add our crystal effects. Now, when you do this, do make sure that you leave it to dry. So what I might do actually is stick this on here first. Now you can either raise this up on here and put it on dimensionals, which I have done on these other ones. Depends where you're sending them to. This obviously has a, oh, hang on, I'll get it right. There we go. So you can see I've actually raised the panel on dimensionals as well as got the knot and the giraffe's ears sticking up. So it's up to you whether which way you do it. Depends where you're sending it and where you want to post it, of course. But I like a bit of dimension on cards. So here I'll just use the original size dimensionals, which I'm running out of, as you can see. I'll need to open another pack. try and make sure it's straight. It's really difficult to make sure these things are straight,
Mm.
working at an angle, which is what I have to do because the iPad's sticking out so much. And then give this a really good shake. These the shimmery crystal effect, the glitter tends to just pool at the bottom. So you want to give it a really good shake before you then put it on. It's got a nice little lip. I may have to just, I keep a little, oh no, it's coming out nicely anyway. I'm going to put a blob on the eye and then just put a little blob on each of these. So it's a nice controllable tip. It's a nice way to do it. Just making sure all my blobs are covered nicely. And the key thing when you've used this is you then leave it to dry.
Mm.
Try and do anything with it, you will smudge these things. These two, final two. So I might have a bit too much on his eye. Let me just take a little bit off. A little bit, there we go. So hopefully you can see there. Try and get the angle right. We need a sunnier day so we can get, you can just see, hopefully, that we've got nice glistening bits on the spots and on the eye. So I then leave that to dry. Do not do anything about that because right. So let's think about the embossing. So I'm going to use the appropriate sentiment from this, which is this is not good. Get that out and stick it on one of my little block. Stick it on my little block. And then to do embossing, you have to have Versamark, which I appear to have lost. Just, oh no, it's here. So you want Versamark ink, very important. It has to be that ink. The embossing powders, when they come, by the way, they will come in these packs. They come in these lovely little jars, which are beautiful, but not terribly easy to use, because if you're a messy crafter like me, then you do tend to spread it everywhere and get it all over the desk, which isn't good for anybody. So what I do when I get these things is I keep all my old plastic Chinese food or whatever takeaway containers, or you can buy containers, obviously, or any other large plastic box, and I tip it into the box. So that this is the gold one. I'll use that now. So I've got one for each colour. So this is my gold one, and I bought a whole loads of little really cheap plastic spoons, or again, you can keep them from anything that provides them and use those to actually do the adding the embossing powder. So I've got one for silver, one for copper, one for black, one for white, all of those things. So we'll use the gold today. So I'll just put it to the side and rest the lid on it for a moment while we talk about how you prepare the thing you want. So key tools for embossing, obviously embossing powder, Versamark stamp, and an embossing buddy. Really important to have an embossing buddy. What this is, it's a little anti-static pad. It's got sort of white powder in it, so you will get some white powder everywhere, it doesn't matter. But because our fingers always have some grease on and you can get fingerprints, embossing powder will stick to anything sticky, anything. So we have to make sure that the surface we're going to use for the embossing is nice and clean. So we just simply rub any surface you're going to emboss with the embossing buddy a few times. Then you don't touch it again. So I've got my piece here. I've got my Versamark ink here. So I'm going to ink up my stamp with my Versamark. Just get it like that. I'll tell you another tip about Versamark, actually, where it's very good in a minute. And then I'm going to have to bring it down so I can actually, I can't get my head over it to see where I am. We'll try about that. This is stamping by Braille. But you perhaps can't see it. I can just see it. You might not be able to see it on there, but there is ink on there, making sure not to touch it. Close the VersaPad because you don't want to get embossing powder on that either. And then I can use my spoon just to tip the embossing powder onto my card, you'll see there's still some embossing powder around. So if I turn it over and flick the back, look at that. Can you see how the only embossing powder is now stuck to where we want it? If you have managed to touch it inadvertently and put some more grease down, so your embossing powder stuck to it, then you can use something like a pokey tool just to remove any little flecks, or a small, tiny little paintbrush. I have a little tiny,
I've got one of those
paintbrush I use, but it's not easy and it's never looks as good. So much better to remember to use the embossing buddy before you actually stamp. So once you've stamped, you want your heat gun, and the heat gun, I can get this across to show you, but the heat gun has got two settings. I actually tend to use it nearly always on high. There is a reason for using the low setting, which I will tell you about another time, but I would use it on high, and I'm just going to heat it from the top. I can't show you because I can't reach across, but always turn your heat gun on for a couple of minutes before you use it so that it comes up to heat. I'll turn it off for a second because I can't speak over it. So you turn your heat gun on first and let it heat up, because if you try and heat it over the paper, you do risk overheating the paper and either getting small scorch marks or getting it to bend, especially if you're embossing on vellum or something. You want to make sure your heat gun is at heat first, so it spends as little time as possible over the actual embossing powder. So I'm going to heat it up and then I'll emboss this. Sorry, I can't quite. Can I just reach? Oh, I can reach it in just from the side here. Hang on. There. So doesn't take long. Oh, I've done the bottom bit. So you can then see which bits you've done. Make sure you've done it all. So I'll just finish doing that. There, you can see that should be showing up. So I think that good isn't quite going here. Off. Right, so you can see that hopefully. So all we do then is I'm just doing this simply cutting it at an angle, because I think that looks rather nice. So once I've done that, I get my almost final, need to get a new pack of these, just put a little dimensional on the back, and then without touching my still wet bits here, I'm just going to put it on here, and I'm going to put it slightly to the side. There we go. So there's our card. Really nice and simple, but really effective, and some nice little touches, which I think just add. So that is how to use embossing powder. You can do exactly the same with the other sentiments. With these, all I've done is done this one in copper, in the copper color, and I've done it on a strip and then just cut the strip to make the little pointy bits. I think I've done much the same on this one. No, I'd cut this one out with a die. So this one, on this one, what I did was, oh, I didn't point that out on the giraffe either. I used the rectangular and square stitched framelit dies. That one's the rectangular one to cut out the layer that I put behind the giraffe. And this one is the square one that I've put behind the tortoise, the turtle. So this one, I also cut out a sentiment piece to match in one of the rectangular stitch framelit dies. The stitching is slightly different lengths on the stitched shape dies and the stitch framelit dies, but hey, I don't think that matters too much. It's a shame I didn't actually get the sentiment straight on that. Never mind, let's not worry about that. So I'm just going to show you, as I say, about cutting the bits when you're using a white card base. That obviously uses less coloured cards, so it's slightly better. So this time I've cut a coloured layer and then a white layer to go on top. And when I'm cutting a coloured layer to put on the white background, I always make it slightly smaller. So on these cards, when I'm using white on colour, I leave a decent layer, different decent bits sitting out, different edge. When I'm using the coloured card, I don't use quite so much. So for this one, I've got my inside, which I'll stamp and do in a minute. And the outside, again, I've got my coloured layer and my DSP layer. Just a little bit. I like DSP, you can use DSP on its own, so it would look all right on there. But if you look at the difference, so that would be the DSP on its own. If you actually put it on a piece of coordinating cardstock, can you see it just looks that little bit better?
Lifts it.
Yeah. So I do find that really helps to make the card look better. So for this one then, just need some pieces of scrap. I'm going to stamp on my my image, whichever one I choose to do. Already got my other, where's my other giraffe that I did, because I can actually use that and just cut that out. Yeah, my giraffe I've already put together, and what I didn't do there is cut out, I might do that. But I could use that giraffe and just cut it out with the die and use that for the front of this one, or I can use one of the other animals, who cares? But what I'm going to do is, which one shall I use for this one then? I'll use a different animal. Okay, quick vote, folks. Do you want the turtle or the sloth?
Turtle.
Turtle. All right, we'll go for the turtle. Right. See, first one, you've got to be in there. Get in there. Right. So I just want to cut. The final thing I want to cut. Can't speak. Cover today is colouring. So just put those away. Get my ink pad. So colouring with the blends or the Stampin' Right markers, always use Memento because that doesn't leach into your colour. As long as you let it dry, obviously you let any ink dry before you try and colour on it. But Memento works really well for working with the blends because they're alcohol blends and it just works really well. So I'm going to stamp up the image, make sure it's nice and covered, and then we'll stamp him about there. So there's our image, beautifully stamped, of course, because these are Stampin' Up stamps and they all stamp beautifully. And clean him. I do like to clean my... I'm cleaning off. By the way, I didn't clean this. Remember I used Versamark on that. I actually don't clean the Versamark off my stamps. You can. But if you leave, and this happens when you've got a new stamp, if you've got a new set, especially some of the sets that have got very detailed stamps, it's really useful to actually stamp Versamark onto it before you use them in ink. It helps the ink grip to a new stamp. So that's a really great tip if you're struggling with especially a really detailed stamp, like this one's fairly detailed. It's got the shading in the shell there, it's this. But I'm thinking of things like the distinctive stamps that you've got, you know, there's the ones that stamp and look as though they've got depth on them. So anything that's quite an intricate stamp, always a good idea is stamp it on, use Versamark, ink the stamp up with Versamark before you use it with an ink, and you'll find it'll actually stamp much better. Just a little tip there, a Versamark tip. So I don't clean Versamark off the stamps because it helps them stamp better. So we've got our image here, and I will need, oh look, I was going to do the giraffe, so I'd got my giraffe colours. Let me just get the other colours. So our turtle, we will have some greens. And I'm using the Stampin' Blends. Actually keep that back because I'll do his base. And for the turtle, I'm going to use the light mint macaron. I think you say macaron anyway, but a light green. And then I'm going to also use, if I can reach them across here, 2 of the in colour greens plus the in colour pale papyrus. That's the soft succulent and the evening evergreen plus pale papaya. I love these stamping blends. So I'm going to go through how we stamp with them to get some depth on the picture. So you can see how I've stamped this one here. And in this one, I actually used, was it this one inside I did differently? Yeah. So on this one, I actually used the darker colour, the evening evergreen, for the blobs on the shell. But then on the inside, I got myself mixed up and I actually did the shell with the darker ones and these with the lighter one. And I think it looks better. So I'm going to do it that way around because I just think it looks nicer that way around. Now I've done it. So I'm going to start off with his shell. So he's upside down. So we want to really show that the middle bit of the shell, oh dear, more bits are falling off. The middle bit of the shell is lighter. So I'm going to use some pale papaya in the middle. So I'm just going to colour just the middle of the shell. So I'm going to go around the edge in a different way with the light coloured pale papaya. And just talking about the blends, they have written on them which one they are, the light, and they come in pairs. So light and dark, and each of them has a thin line at one end, which is the sort of writing nib, if you like, and a thick one at the other, which is the brush nib. So for colouring in a decent space, you can use the brush nib. For colouring in small spaces, I use the little tiny nib. So then I'm going to go with my darker colour, my darker pale papaya, and just go around the edge of where I've done that first one. And it looks like I've got stripes now. Can you see that? But as it dries, it merges into itself and you get just an effect of dark and light. And it's watching it happen. It's quite nice. Yeah. Oh, it's not really showing so well on there.
No, it's not. No.
No. I wonder if it'll show better when I get into the green. Let's see. So I'm going to do his head and his legs in mint macaron. So I'm just going to do this relatively quickly, but try not to go over the lines. I've learned about colouring at school. I'm not doing his toes, and I'll show you why in a minute. I'm just going to colour out like this. Now, the beauty about these back on your feet stamps is that they tell you where to do the shading because it's already there. So once I've used my light macaron, mint macaron, I'm going to go to my darker mint macaron and the pointy nib because I've got more control over it. And I'm just going to highlight where the shading already is.
Right.
So it really helps you to know where to shade. So obviously under his chin is going to be shady, next to the shell is going to be shady. I'm just going over where the shading areas are, plus any other areas I think I probably need to. Like here, that's around the shell there, that's going to be a bit darker here. So is this one here. And then because I'm using the little nib, I'm going to do his toes in the darker colour as well. So I've got more control over this nib than I have the brush nib. And get the toes done. So let's hope that shows up better. About the two, yeah, you can see the two different colours better there, can you?
Yes.
So you can see the effect you can get. So immediately we're getting depth just by using the two colours, and you can see the pale papaya a little bit better just from holding it there, which is good. So then I'm going to use my other greens, my soft succulent, the paler one, and the evening evergreen, the darker one. Again, they come in a dark and light version. So I'm going to always start with the lighter one, add the dark. And then if you find that I'll show you on this with the pale papaya. So this bottom one I've done, I don't know if you can see, but there is an edge. I can see an edge there, and I don't want an edge. I want it to look sort of more fluid. So I'm going to just go over it again with my pale colour and just smooth out those edges so that, oh, I can see that already. You probably can't on there, but it's just got rid of that sharp edge and just made it dark, light, dark as a sort of gradient, which is the effect I'm wanting. So I'm going to do it the way around of having the darker shell. So I'm going to start with my light soft succulent and just do, I think it's a dark green, so it's still dark, but it's not as dark as the other one. I'm actually going to not go on into there because I'm going to do that another way. So that gives me a nice edge to my shell. That's going to be very dark, so I'll put that in dark. And then I'm just going to go around again. I'm actually using the brush here. I should be using the point because it's a little bit more controllable for doing these narrowy bits, but I just want to get on and show you with these. So that's my outline. And again, I'm going to use my darker one with the pointy nib just to put in a little bit of, so go around the edge of the shell, for example, and just underneath the shell, because that's going to be darker. around the rim, and then just around the edge of some of these, just where it's going to be a little bit darker because there's where the light catches. I was trying to be posh. Right, that just shows you it's enough, to be honest. I'm going to go mad. And then I'm going to use the light soft succulent, the lighter colour. And I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do around the edge of here. I'm going to fill in the shell here and merge that into the pale papaya. So this is a different colour. So I definitely want to come back to my pale papaya, and I'm going to come back with the darker one. And then I'm just going to merge it in like this. And as that dries, you'll see the colours just merge into one another. I'm also going to use dark for the edge around the holes where the legs come out. Forgot that bit. There we go. So I'm going to use my light soft succulent now to do his shell markings. So again, I go in with the lighter colour first. Just fill all these in. Obviously, you can take a little bit more care than I'm taking today. Just it's boring watching people colour, so I'm trying to do it quickly for you. So go through in the light colour, and I'm going to get my darker colour. And again, I can use the markings on the stamp to indicate where I just need to put in a bit more shading. Going to be more shading around here because it's facing the ground. And that one's nearly all shaded. So hopefully you can see how we've got that effect now. And what that does is start to give you a little bit of depth. Let it dry. And then if you want to do another layer on top or add a bit more colour to certain bits, feel free. But hopefully that gives you an idea about how to use our gorgeous blends to get, I'll try and bring it really close so you can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to do for the ground, just to add a bit of depth there, is add a little bit of crumb cake. This crumb cake's starting to run out. It's because I use crumb cake more than anything else, because I do so many dog stamps. Crumb cake fits with them all. So there we go. And then I can use my glossy accents again, and just again add in an eye. I like the eyes to be glossy. I think they should stick out. And then on the turtle, I do the shell markings. I'll squeeze out. There we go. So I don't know, you perhaps didn't even see the crystal shimmer effects in the catalogue. They're the sort of thing that everyone misses. But
No, I didn't.
I really like them. I just think it adds something to a card. And as we get towards doing winter ones, I've got lots of ideas. So again, make sure you let it dry before touching it in any way at all. But hopefully you can just start to see the effect on that. So on some of the others, I've done the whole shell. On this one, I've just done the actual markings, and I think that's better actually than the whole shell. But up to you. And his eye, of course, sparkly eyes like that. So I'll put that to one side to dry before I touch it again, and then I'll cut it out with one of my framelit dies, and I'll add it to my card, and then I'll have another turtle card. So again, with this one, I want to use, I'll just do a quick sentiment so I can show you one of the other colours. Which colour should we use this time, silver or copper?
Copper.
Choice again, copper. There we go. So what's the first thing I've got to do?
Embossing buddy.
The embossing buddy, absolutely. So I've got a scrap of card here, embossing buddy all over, and then when I've embossed it, I want to make sure I hardly touch it. So I've just got my nail on the very, very corner. So I'm hardly touching it there. Embossing buddy, and then we'll get, hope you're back on your feet soon. which is this one. So there we go. I've embossing buddied and not touched it since. Ink it up with the Versamark. Stick that somewhere in the middle. Try and get it level without being able to see it properly because I can't lento. Do you know? This is the downside of using the iPad, but at least I can get the picture the right way up, which is what we were struggling with. You probably can't see it's there. So I always check it just in light to make sure that I have made sure I've inked everything. And if you're not sure, use something like the Stamparatus, because then you can always re-ink it in exactly the same place. I will go through how to use the Stamparatus another time. So again, make sure I've got enough on that. A little bit more on that bit. Flick it so we've got any extra off. So there we go. Hope you're back on your feet soon. And then we just need to heat on it. And if you hold this so you can see the light, you'll see it as it changes. I didn't need to reheat that because it was already heated. And there we go. Can we see the...
Yeah.
There. So I'll cut that out with another die. That can go on my card with my bits and with my turtle, and that'll form another card for me. I haven't done the inside, but I will stamp that and do that another time as well. So I hope that gave you some ideas with these. I've got a couple more cards to show you that I've made with this set. Ooh, can't get it out. So this one, I've used Granny Apple Green for this one, and this is a flip card. So again, I've done my turtle in exactly the same way. I've got his shimmery effects on him, but this time I've made that little card, which is rather nice, just a little flip card. So if you're interested in making complex cards like that, I didn't put a turtle inside. Normally I'd put a turtle on there, and I haven't done that. Oh, might have to do that. So that's one I made there. And then got a little bit carried away with the giraffe and made a 4-inch square card, which opens like that. Now this time I've used the white embossing powder on black, so you can see the shimmer on it, probably not. Again, I've lifted the knot up, haven't put crystal effects on there because to be honest, there's enough going on this card. Cut out some grass. This is from a previous die set, which I think is now retired, or you could just use scissors to, you know, snip a sort of an edge and make some grass that way. Some old retired paper on this one, actually, because it made it this a little while ago. And then inside, same sort of sentiment inside. So this is, again, ever such a simple card. If you actually look at it, it's all cut from one sheet, and we've just done some crease marks, cut down, extra crease mark there. And you form this sort of little mini easel stick out card. Don't know what you call it, stick out card. Who knows? It goes well. You need a small envelope for that though, which is not a Stampin' Up one, but you can make them out of paper, of course. I will show you how to make envelopes one day too. So those are just a couple of other ideas to do with this particular set. I love it, and it's so quick and easy for Get Well cards, because quite often with Get Well cards, I like to keep a stock in because you never know when somebody's going to need one.
Yeah, that's right.
So I like to do a little stock. So now I've got a nice little stock of all my different ones. So just to go through what I've used on the sloth, I've used grey granite, the dark and the light grey granite on him, crumb cake on the branch, and I think that's soft succulent on the leaves there. It is, because it matches that. On the giraffe, I've used daffodil yellow, light and dark, and crumb cake for the spots. That's how I did the giraffe. And that's it, because I've shown you the turtle. So those are the 3 ones. So that's my recommendation. Get the set, get perhaps some card and emboss powders, and that will give you one free Celebration item. Get the heat tool and perhaps some combo colors or just a whole load of combo blends, and you'll be able to get another free Celebration thing. So I hope you enjoyed that. The videos will be up on my new website. Do go and visit it, www.craftycarolscards.co.uk. And there's all sorts of card instructions and pictures, and the video will be up later as soon as I've managed to upload it and sort it all out. So within the next day or two anyway. So
Thank you very much.